Dunton Locks Pottery is located 2 miles south of Detroit Lakes, off Highway 59 by Dunton Locks Park. Open daily, 11 to 4.
For a closer look at Phil Holton's wood turning, call 346-3860.
The Glass Lady Studio is located in Lake Park, Minnesota at 403 Lake Street. If you'd like more information on classes or custom work, you can give us a call at 218-234-8844.
We're at the Glass Lady Studio today talking about kiln work, specifically fusing and slumping glass. Kiln work has really become popular in the last 10 or 15 years, creating everything from, this is just a wine bottle melted down into a cheese platter. These are quite popular, all the way to a simple fused cross. That is just utilizing, you maybe can see the 3 different pieces of red there, and then the 4 pieces of white laid on top of it. You put them in the kiln, and this is a full fuse where the glass is completely melted in, the white is completely melted into the red glass. To more common or more useful items, I should say, everyday useful items such as a light switch. This is actually a cast glass. It was a bunch of glass powder or frit, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a few minutes here, put into a mold with crushed white glass put on top of it. And that's more of a tack fuse because you can still see the formations of white. All the way up to larger items such as this mousse. The mousse was created by, the background is one solid piece of clear glass with different colored frit or crushed glass sprinkled over it in different sections. And then I actually snapped the antlers off because I wanted them to stand out a little bit. So I snapped them off and then kind of hid the seam here and curved them a little bit, slumped them, it would be the official term, around a form to make them curve out. And then in this piece I utilized some scrap copper to create the bottom of the hanging. So that's quite simple. The background is just a stained wood. All the way to an upcoming class that I have, a mosaic fused mirror. That's a lot of terms, but the mirror has fused pieces. It was started out as a plate that actually broke in the kiln, a glass tray, if you will, and I did not want to just have the pieces go to waste because there's a lot of expensive glass such as dichroic and iridized glass in this piece, and so I really wanted to utilize them. So I just took and cut them all down into tiny pieces and then did a mosaic sort of method. And so many people have liked this mirror that I've had a lot of requests for it. So I'm offering an upcoming class. So how that mirror came to be was I had started with a just regular fuse, a clear piece of glass, and I had randomly put different colors on it in an abstract pattern for this particular piece. And then in the process of the kiln, it had cracked, as I mentioned before. Frit, there's lots of different, in the fused and crushed, or fused and slumped glass world, there's lots of different terms. And they all kind of mean about the same thing, really, but there's lots of fancy terms for them. So frit is basically crushed glass, and it comes anywhere from a real powdery form, such as this black, all the way up in coarseness to a real more coarser glass, into the chips, where they're really, really thin pieces that they've made. Another option is dichroic, or stringers and noodles. This happens to be a dichroic stringer. And the reason it's called dichroic is it changes color in the light, and that has to do with the way they make glass. Dichroic is actually one of the more expensive forms of glass by the process that it's made. You see it most commonly probably in the pendants, the glass pendants that are so popular now at the craft fairs. And it's usually used in real small quantities just because of that cost. Another option would be using glass gems, such as I have on this one. I've got a few of those melted in. So lots of options. The only trick really with fusing is that there's different coefficiencies in glass, and that basically means the heating and cooling expansion rate of glass. So when you use a system, they call them systems, you have to stick with the same system all the way through. System 96 is probably the most common and the most reasonable in cost, and actually has the best results I've found for teaching classes, so it's oftentimes what I use. And there's also a System 90, and when you get into bead making, System 104. So lots of fancy terms there, but basically if you're taking a class or if you're trying it on your own, if you have a kiln at home, you have to have the same system. So make sure you find that. And that's usually found on the bottles. Like this is System 90. The others say System 96. I was showing you different coarsenesses. So the other thing you can use is if you have scrap left over from other pieces, of course, you can use that as long as you know what system your glass is in. So to create that, in this class, what you will do is in the very first one, you'll be given a sheet of glass, and you're going to just start decorating it in some random pattern. You could do a very abstract. You could do a floral or something, but the end result is that we're actually going to just cut this all apart. So you're really going more for color and textures. So you could use different available styles of glass. You can layer them. Keep in mind, when firing, glass likes to stay around 1/8 of an inch thick, so you don't want to get too many layers that go up too high. But you just randomly place different things. I always, like we talked about before with the dichroic, like to add a little dichroic bling in there. So I would probably break this up and add a few pieces. And in this one, all of these little ones are the dichroics that kind of change color. And there's also some iridized, which when it fires gets more of a solid rainbow look to it. So then you would leave it with me, and I would fire it in the kiln for you. And when you come back, we would start cutting this apart. Now, there's a lot of bumpiness to this side of your glass, so you always cut on your smooth side. We're not going to worry too much about shapes. The other thing you could do, I have done these where I've left them in strips and made kind of a random block pattern out of it. Always harder to break. You can see that broke randomly there. That's a risk you take. But it also cuts in strips. Then you would take your mirror. First, place your mirror on your board and start randomly placing these either in strips or little tiny bits like you saw in the last one. I'll show you that one at the very end again around it. This becomes kind of a monster to grout because of all this different texture and randomness. So instead of the traditional grouting that you've seen me do before, we just take the glue after everything is glued down, take the glue, put them down, fill in all the cracks, and then I actually use sandblasting material to fill this one. And you could also use colored sand, crushed glass, crushed shells, all sorts of different materials you could use as your filler to hide all those seams and make it look like it's supposed to be that way. So if you're interested in taking a class on fused glass or fused mirror, please contact the Glass Lady Studio.
The Glass Lady Studio is located in Lake Park, Minnesota at 403 Lake Street. If you'd like more information on classes or custom work, you can give us a call at 218-234-8844.